Hello again, this is Ryan with bettertattooing.com. We're in the garage trying to answer a question I get asked a lot, which is, how do I improve the quality and consistency of my line work? So past the previous video that we released about range of motion and how that can help, we're going to talk about angle of insertion with your needles here. So, to keep this video super short, consider this line skin, right? If this is our skin that we're working with, I wrote it down there. Camera's a little bit close today, but that's fine. The angle and direction of where your needles impact the skin is going to create a different effect by how it disperses the pigment into the skin. If your needles are going straight up and down, perpendicular to the skin, you're going to have a strike force that's going to be putting the pigment down in great quantities, usually deeper than it needs to be. Although any grouping that you use, it's greater than one. Most of the needles, if it's a straight liner and not curved, which would be like a shader where the edges are kind of curved like that or hollow, all of the pigment's going to be going in great quantities. And on average, the force of that is going to create a cavernous thing where the ink is going to split out, move out, blow out, right? Less subcutaneous tissue that you have, the more that this is going to happen. And yet people are going to be running at a 45 or less degree. We'll call this shallow, right? A shallow angle on this, when the needle comes into the skin, it is going to only affect, especially on larger groupings, a certain number of the needles that are actually in the grouping. If we have a grouping that is coming in, which I'm not going to draw a bunch of lines for this shit because fuck it, that's going to be striking the skin and not very deep enough. We'll say you're just really shallow, and you have a shallow lead off your tube. Only a certain number of the needles are actually going to be reaching penetrating levels to disperse pigment. It's super shallow. Most people do this because they're trying to actually watch their needle. They're not paying attention to actually their hand form. It's very common in beginners. So what happens is the needles come in here, you're going to get some pigment that's going to be put into the proper area, just like top layer of the dermis, and then the rest of the pigment is going to kind of sit superficially up inside of the epidermis, which is the dead skin cells that will be sloughed off. So as it heals, over time, you're going to see greater amount of pigment loss, and it'll look super patchy underneath. That's not good. So normally what we try to do is keep a consistent line that is sitting somewhere between 67 and a bit degrees and 70 degrees. And what you're going to be doing is getting a leading edge, creating a bit of trauma to the epidermis at the top, where the needles are going to be moving in and out against the edge. This will strike the skin initially, laying your bead of pigment that's going to go in. Half of these needles are going to be chomping up some of the epidermis, making it easier for the last bit of the needles to actually lay into the skin. So your hand speed is going to determine how consistent this stuff is, as well as this big bubble of ink that's going to sit on the front. We're not going to talk about skin prep or stretch or any of that other stuff, but if you want to improve your lines, run it at about 70 degrees. That's the easiest way to improve your tattoo game.